daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Heck of a weekend, eh? Hello everyone, welcome back to the Daily Manchester United. My name's Kieran, and I think it's safe to say we've all had a bit of time to, as I say so often, reflect on the weekend just gone. And that optimism of back-to-back home wins in the Premier League quickly crashing down to earth. Oh well, what can you do about it? Well, quite a few things. I mean, there's been murmurs now around Amrim staying in the job, whether he is facing the sack. You've got Rooney saying he doesn't recognise Manchester United at all. You've got comparisons being made to Gary Neville's time in Valencia. And you've also got, I don't know, Ole Glasner linked with the Manchester United job, Xavi linked with the United job. I mean, what is going on? It's such a whirlwind of no one really knows what's going on. A year ago, Amrim was meant to be the best up-and-coming manager ever. Or that's how it was painted by all the media of all the world. A year later, all of a sudden, now he's the worst manager of all time. And I just think sometimes the managers that have come through, when's the message going to go through that it's not the manager, it's the board, it's whatever? It's much easier to pin the blame on the manager. You know, this is a manager who's brought in a system that, I mean, could work with the right signings. But we've had 2 windows now, and although, you know, we're getting to a point where we apparently only sign superstars for lots of money, you know, we don't go into the transfer market looking for, you know, those that can just do the job. But we're past that. You know, United can't do that because otherwise every single player will just go up and up and up in valuation. We try and go in for someone for £2 million and all of a sudden they're now a 30, 40, 50 million player and we'd still pay for it. It's getting to a point where the problems aren't of the manager. And how much of it lies with the players, how much of it lies with the board, how much of it lies with the recruitment, how much of it all of this encompasses the problem that apparently it's one person responsible, and that's their head coach / manager, whatever you want to call it. But the fact of the matter is that we keep getting into this conversation. I mean, remember when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer apologised to the United fans because he finished second in the league? Do you remember that? And I think Ole would have maybe still been in the job for a bit longer, I would have thought, had Ronaldo not signed for the club. And there's a whole ream of that. If you've listened to previous episodes, you'll understand where my opinion on this is that work that Ole was doing to give youth a chance and to prioritise the academy by bringing Ronaldo back, it created a power divide of players wanting to play for Ronaldo or for Ole. So the power shift was there, and that's something you cannot have as a manager, full stop. But, you know, we've had multiple managers since Ferguson. You know, we had the appointed one, the chosen one, David Moyes, who has not done too bad. He's won a European trophy with West Ham. I mean, looking at West Ham right now, that looks pretty good on his CV. Since then, we've also had Louis van Gaal, who brought in that 5 at the back system. We've also had, Ralf Rangnick, who explicitly said what the problems were and made his merry way on and had no interest in signing permanently at all. We've also had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We've had Jose Mourinho. We've had, all sorts of tactics of masterminds that have come through. If Mourinho is probably one of the masterminds, a coup of a signing, but he's managing everywhere now in this latter stage of his career. Now he's going to visit Chelsea in the Champions League. That should be a pretty interesting game to watch. But it's how much of it is, the manager? How long can people keep blaming the manager? But also at the same time, it's so easy to, because Amrim is on the sideline and can't look at a penalty. There are certain things you have to be as a manager. And as a manager, you are the forefront of the criticism. You are at the forefront of team selections, of the system. Amram's made it perfectly clear that he is not changing his system. He's going to be stubborn about it. And that is a decision I respect. I say that on record now. If we get relegated whilst we're still in there, that becomes another question. But I will always have the backing of people as long as they're showing that they have that willingness to improve themselves as players, as managers, and what have you. The reason why in the end I grew a little bit weary of Ten Hag was because he was consistently choosing favourites. But Amram's doing that now and standing on his belief with Altay in not changing the goalkeeper, loaning a goalkeeper out, keeping Altay, and now saying he's my starting keeper. But that's not the message you want to send to every other team in the league, because now they're going to just shoot on sight, aren't they? I mean, Altay's not the keeper for Man United. And if he's still being picked over Saint-Lamont, who we've signed in this window, just gone, what does that tell you about Amram's confidence in the Belgian keeper? I mean, I don't know. That's the thing. I've sort of talked about Amram when he first came in about a year ago, was explicitly not having favourites. If you weren't towing the line, you were dropped. Most of the so-called bomb squad, which is, call them what you want, but most of them were sold on or aren't at the club currently. Either they've left permanently or left temporarily. But most of them, aren't at the club currently. And I think that was a good job. However, what comes down to it is the recruitment. Now, how involved is Amrim in the recruitment? He is head coach, is he not? So head coach is different from manager, correct? Head coach is you are given the players and you are told, make the best of this. Now, Amram has a system. He would have advised what his system is, what kind of players he wants. But at the end of the day, is he the final say for what kind of players he wants to bring in and which players he does want to bring in? How much of a say does he have in that? And when it was announced that he would be head coach rather than manager, that struck me as a little bit, not suspicious, but definitely a little bit odd. You come to Manchester United and you're expected to bring that sort of prestige with you. You're expected to know which sort of players you want to bring in. You're expected to be on the radar. At one point, United had one of the best scouting networks in the world. And yes, they spent big bucks on the occasion to bring in certain players, but the scouting network was there to fall back on, to say, right, we're lacking in this department, let's go and sign a player. Berbatov signing for the club. Ferguson realised we don't have, a striker who is, I don't know, cool, calm, committed on the ball. I'm sure that's exactly how the conversation went. But the point was, they saw Berbatov and thought, I want him at the club. Got him to the club, turned out to be a great signing. There are occasions where that hasn't worked, because not on every transfer can be correct. Not every transfer will be right. How much is in this? How much of the players coming in is Amorim's doing? This is the thing we don't know. But Rooney saying that he believes the culture is gone, and this isn't the United he knows. You've got Tim Sherwood quoting on Sky Sports News saying about Amram, he talks brilliantly, but he probably talks so well he's bluffed his way into the job there. Stones at glass houses, Tim. But, I don't get it. We're back to this conversation about, we're getting rid of the manager, or we want rid of the manager. Well, that was the same with Ten Hag, and that was the same with Mourinho, and Ole and Van Gaal and Rangnick, they can't all have got it wrong. They can't all be wrong choices. They can't all be managers that aren't fit for the job. I don't get it. I don't get what, we keep falling for this fall guy. But it's got to change. It has to change from being one person's fault. This is an entire system that is failing season after season. And that shows with the 15th place finish. That shows with us being knocked out in the League Cup. That shows with the 3-1 loss to Brentford to a side that had been essentially, not quite gutted, but a lot of top players left that club and their manager. And Keith Andrews was able to bring a win, bring a victory, purely because he's of the volition, well, my players will make mistakes, but it's the start of the season. But the difference lies in that United making mistakes. These are supposedly brilliant players that are making these mistakes. But these are also players that are on high wages. You expect them to put in those good performances. And I've been harping about De Ligt and how he had a poor game. Yoro was on the bench. I just wonder how it could go on like this and we're not in serious trouble. Because we're out of Europe right now. And if this goes on, we know it's 6 games played, 7 points. If it goes on like this, again, we're going to be looking right at the bottom of the table than at the top. And with how financially Manchester United is supposed to be run, like most of the top football clubs, you need European competition. You need intercontinental competition to survive at the top. And at the moment you don't have that and you still have a bloated wage structure, at that point, you are going to be in trouble. Leeds, when they got up into the Premier League in the mid-2000s, they spent a lot. They threw money at the Premier League. They threw money at the players. They threw money at everything to try and get themselves to be a force. But then that bit them on the back because they couldn't quite keep up the revenue coming into Leeds than they could with the output they were spending and the wages and the transfer fees. And in the end, they went into administration. So this, right now, the performances on the pitch are showing lackluster, apathy. And the longer that goes on, the more likely it is that United's financial crisis, whether it exists or not, 1 minute it does, 1 minute it doesn't, it will be a financial crisis. It will be. Anyway, that was a bit of a long rant. I do apologise. Anyway, when I come back, maybe a bit of a calmer Kieran when we come back. But yeah, don't bet on it. Back after this.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionic, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionic provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionic. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Interesting note, Wayne Rooney also said to BBC Sport, put Roy Keane in that dressing room. Well, I know we're facing Sunderland, but if we do that, we might face the same fate as Sunderland in that season. Anyway, sometimes club legends going into clubs doesn't work, and that's okay. But hey-ho. Anyway, look, it's time for Tweet of the Week. And this time, I've been sort of told by social media, I've got to start a conversation with you all. We love a conversation, don't we? So how about this from at MUFCDH? Xavi as Manchester United coach? Yes or no? Interesting. Because we're at this conversation again where apparently a new manager comes in and patches everything over and everything will be perfect and fine and we'll be back on top again. Ridiculous. We're back here again after a year. There's also been links with Glasner coming in, but why would he take a step down? To be honest, you could put anybody in that United hot seat and they would last a year and nothing would change. The players are just as apathetic as I am at the moment. They don't care who's at the top. They're getting paid. It's all good. They can show their frustration as much as they like, but at the end of the day, they're earning a lot in a week. They're earning in a week what most people earn in, 10 years? It's not really an excuse, is it? It's not really an excuse to say, I'm a bit frustrated. Nothing will change if we bring in a new manager. Nothing. So, in my personal view, no point. No point in changing manager. No point in having to pay off Ruben Amrim. No point to cancelling that contract. No point in bringing anyone in an interim. Nothing will change. Nothing will change. Because much like we had Ten Hag bringing in players, given 3 months, and then he was sacked, Amram have to come in, use these players that technically aren't his, and then put them into his system that got us 15th. And then we go through a transfer window where Amram now has maybe a say, maybe not a say in the transfers, but in any case, he brings in players. United bring in players that are supposedly more suited to this new system. And we're still 15th after 7 games with a drubbing at City, an embarrassment, both in City and in Brentford, and also being knocked out of the League Cup at the earliest possibility because we performed so badly in the league last season that we had to be in the second round, didn't get a bye. I think nothing will change if we bring in a new manager. Absolutely nothing. This is rotten at the top. Absolutely rotten at the top. All that matters is the money coming in. And until that money doesn't come in, the owners won't care. They'll just sell up. Maybe we need that day. Maybe that day is desperately needed to take a step back, to then try and move forward. It's been 12 years. 12 long years. I really didn't take advantage of the years when I was younger and United were on top. I did not realise how bad it would get. I don't even think, even if you give Ferguson a 6-month contract, he wouldn't be able to do much with this. So I'm revising my prediction of 8th, and I'm going to say we're going to finish 15th, 16th. If the players can't care, then neither can I. And I hope you'll join me in that, because something has to change, and it ain't going to be me. Anyway, let us know down in the comments then. Is a new manager needed? Perhaps it could be Xavi. Or should we stick with Amrim? Or does it not matter? Let me know what your volition is, and let me know in the comments down below. You can also chat to us on all the social medias. Perhaps I'm too harsh. Perhaps I'm not harsh enough. Let me know. I'd love to start a conversation with you. We're on all the socials. It's at gspnmanunited. We're on Twitter and X. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. And we're on TikTok. So go and start a conversation with us there. Would love to have a chat with you. If you're listening to the podcast, I've knocked my phone there then. If you've listened to the podcast on Spotify and Apple and had that terrible racket in your ears and also the phone bashing against the table, and you'd like to watch the podcast as well, you can watch us on YouTube. It's at GSPN Daily Man United Podcast. It's a name so long, so you have to remember it. And of course, here at the Daily Manchester United, we couldn't give you these podcasts without our partners at Zencastr, because at Zencastr, it's really easy and super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently with its 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing. That means you can remove certain words, ums and ahs, and anything of your volition, anything that you like from the podcast itself. Maybe I want to write the entire podcast clean of the word Manchester United. I could, in theory, do that with the AI editing tool. But of course, we couldn't do without them. So if you're ready to tell your story, make sure you check out Zencastr in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. In the meantime, plenty more coming up, of course. Plenty of discussion to be had up towards the Sunderland game, and then another international break where we're back to square one and where we were last season. Can't wait for that international break. It means we don't get to watch Man United. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.